Welcome, everyone. And the big question today, how much do I actually need to retire comfortably in Australia? It's a massive question. It's one we get asked all the time. And even as we start to build the building blocks for people, it's very hard to work out exactly. And people gravitate between rules of thumbs to trying to have some rough ideas. But we see a lot of challenges around this, and those challenges lead often to people working longer than they need to, or carrying a lot of uncertainty, particularly about how much they can spend. So let's dive in. Before I do, as always, this is general advice. So I don't know your circumstances, so you should seek out advice or do your own research before making any financial decisions based on this information. But we're here to help you on that journey of working out the critical numbers in moving towards being able to retire. So here's the question again. How much do I actually need to retire comfortably in Australia? Other questions we'd get is $1 million enough? It's funny how we like to drill in on round numbers, or is 500,000 enough? Is 2 million enough? How much do I need if I retire at 60 or even earlier versus 65 or later at 67? So can I retire earlier? There's always the fear when we're retiring earlier that we might run out of money. So that's what we've got to get past. What is a comfortable retirement? How much do I need for a comfortable retirement in terms of dollars to spend? What's a modest retirement? What am I aiming for? Are these rules of thumbs helpful to me, or should I be building it custom based on my own stuff? How different is the number for couples versus singles? And do the rules of thumbs even apply to me? So let's get in. And is $1 million enough? And as always, the answer is not the answer you want to hear, but it depends. For some people, it's more than enough. For other people, it's nowhere near enough. So what does it depend on? And it's literally all about you. It depends on you. It depends on your exact circumstances and how much you want to spend. And we'll dive into that. And to do that, you're going to need to do some detective work to think about what's specific to you. I'm going to show you the rules of thumbs today. You've heard me talk before. I don't love the rules of thumb. I think they deal with the averages, and most of the people we deal with are far from average. Of course, some people will be close to the average, but not everyone. And the people we sit down with range massively in terms of what they can in retirement. And one of the factors I've found is it's chicken and egg. If I've got a lot of money, I tend to going to spend a lot of money. If I don't have a lot of money, I'm going to work out how to spend less money. So you could ask the same people. Think about yourself. If you knew you were going to have $10 million nest egg assets in retirement, would you be trying to spend more than if you knew you're going to be restricted to 1 million? Now, the answer's absolutely obvious. Of course you would. Now, you might bring in other factors, helping people, buying a bigger house, all the stuff I'm going to talk about, which actually determines how much you need. But you would be naturally inclined just to spend more. And the same as if you were made to retire and you only had your house and 500,000, you'd work out how to make that work, often by spending less, but by being careful, by tapping into other resources. And I've seen that people are remarkably resilient. It is nice to have more, but not necessarily for everyone. And I have seen people, I've met with people who, despite having more, they just can't spend it. And they just choose not to spend it. Their life, for whatever reason, is simple. They enjoy the simple things. They don't need a lot of money. And there's people at the other end that have expensive tastes. What do they say? Champagne tastes and beer income. So it's getting it right for you so that you can make these really important decisions about when you retire. So let's have a look at the two biggest personal factors, and then I'll look at a few other really important factors as well. There's lots of factors here. So the biggest one is how much do you want to spend? So by that I mean, do you need 50,000 a year? Do you need 80,000 a year? Do you need, now you've noticed I've switched from need to want, partly deliberately, but this is a mistake that we make as well. Because if I ask you how much do you need, well, you might say, I could probably get by with whatever your number is, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, but that's not necessarily what you want. And, we can't all just say we want $1 million a year because we may not have the capability to generate that. Some people will. We have clients that could easily spend $1 million a year. Most of them don't, by the way. Most of our clients come from having earned their own money, so they're not people that have inherited lots of money. Our clients absolutely inherit, but we've got very few clients that are living off inherited funds. And we've got most of our clients fit into the what I call the mass affluent. That's 500 to 5 million as the center of that. And we've got some that go up to 20 million at the top of that. But we're not dealing with billionaires and 100 millionaires at this stage. Now, in my 30 years of helping clients with this, that number's continued to go up, and I suspect it will continue to go up. But the key information we provide in forums like this and in helping our clients and in the businesses that I run is around helping what I call the mass affluent. So it's not teaching someone how to live on their age pension, although there's plenty of people out there who's doing that. Probably 60% of the population, by the way. So the vast number of people out there end up with their house and just an age pension, and not much more than 100,000 over that. Those numbers have not changed much in the last 30 years. And I know some of those people, some of them are family, and some of them live absolutely fine. They just work it out. And I'll talk about what the age pension is and all this stuff shortly. It wouldn't even go close to it for me. But once again, that's a chicken and egg issue. I've got money, so therefore I spend money. So let's drill in on these for a minute. How much do you want to spend? So the question we will ask people is, if you were retired right now, how much would you need coming in to pay for a nice life? So we're not saying a lavish life, we're not saying a luxurious life, and that might be it for you, that's fine. But a nice life, the one where you can pretty much do what you want, pick the number of trips, help your kids, grandkids, do the things you want to do, not have to watch the money too much, and how much you'll need to watch it will depend on how much you've got. But we're talking about the annual amount. You can break that down, the monthly amount, weekly, fortnightly, whatever. But let's say it's 100,000 a year. And we're talking about what you need to spend here, not what you need to make before tax. If you manage your retirement finances well, tax will not be a big issue. And that means predominantly out of super. I'm not going to dive into all that today, but let's just ignore tax for the purpose of the conversation today. Do you need 1,000 a week? Do you need 2,000 a week? Somewhere in between. Is it 4,000 a week? Is it a hybrid? I need 2,000 a week or 8,000 a month to help me pay for the basics, my rates, my groceries, eating out twice a week, the odd trip here and there. But I also want a budget of 50 grand a year for one big trip a year, or 25,000 a year because we're going to do a trip that fits that, or is it 10,000 because I'm going to do a trip every 3 years? So these are customizable. And then the second big factor here, personal factor, is how long do you want it to last? Now, you might be 50 and you're happy for it to last till you're 70 for a variety of reasons. You might be happy to just enjoy, just live off Centrelink and maybe a reverse mortgage at that point. You might have done the numbers and realized that your parents will not be around at that point, and you can do the maths and you kind of know that you're going to inherit $1 million or $2 million. So that will well and truly cover in your 70s or 80s or 90s. So these are personal factors. So how long do you want it to last? And I'll look very specifically in this at the numbers around that as well. So how long do you want it to last? How much do you want to spend are the two big factors. But there's lots more at work. So these are the other really important influences. What are your house plans? Are you going to sell the house at some stage and free up some capital? Do you need to spend money on the house? All this affects the money you're going to need in retirement. So when we say is $1 million enough, $1 million might generate someone $80,000 for 20 years if it's invested well. And you'll note on that bottom list, for those of you that are watching, but on the secondary list that we've got here is investment returns. Someone that gets good investment returns, their money will last longer than someone that gets average investment returns or low investment returns, or even worse, if they mess up their investing completely and lose substantial capital. So we've got the house plans, we've got likely inheritances. So are we likely to inherit? How much do we only need to plan? Like I said, if I'm 60, and in my case, my parents have passed, so it's not an issue for me. So I know there's nothing more coming. But for many of the people we talk to, for many of our clients, for many of you guys, you might be 60, your parents might be 80. So you might go, well, I can probably retire. And if I've got enough money to last for 15, or let's call it 20 years, by then my parents are 95 to 100, there's a high probability they're not around. And that's sad. And you don't want to be morbid about this. You don't want to be counting it. But it's, if you're an only child and you're in a good relationship with your parents and you're the executor of their will and you've seen their will and you know what the assets look like, you'll kind of know roughly what it's going to be. Now, you should discount in case they spend a lot of money on aged care and everything else. And you are taking a slight risk if they wrote you out of the will at the last minute or decided to go on a spending spree. But it's unlikely. In my experience, that does not happen often. Everything occasionally happens. So you've got to decide. But you might decide, I really want to enjoy retirement while I'm young enough, fit enough, healthy enough. And so I do want to retire now. And if that was 60 for you, and you had $1 million and you thought 80,000 was the right number for you, we could probably show that 80,000 would last for 15 to 20 years. And at that stage, your parents are probably gone or on the cusp of it. You can also tap into your house if they hadn't gone at that point in time. And along the way, you'd also pick up some Centrelink. Once you drop below, it's about $1.1 million in assets these days. You pick up an age pension. You might only pick up a couple of dollars. But once you drop below 500,000 in assets, you're picking up nearly 45,000 for a couple. And I'll touch on those exact numbers shortly. So it absolutely makes a difference, and that's less you need as well. So those numbers can be the case. So let's keep going and let's jump across for those of you that can see this. We're going to have a look at the, you can see on the screen there, and I'll describe this for those of you that are listening. But this is a website that's run by the Superannuation Association of Australia. They've been doing this for a lot. So they've got this matrix about how much people need, and they split it into a comfortable lifestyle, a modest lifestyle, and a modest lifestyle for people that are renting. Now, the amounts they say, and if you can see this, and on the right, they've got the age pension. So the age pension for a single, including all the supplements, is $31,000, and this information is accurate according to their website up to the March quarter of 2026. So it's July. Late in July as I record this, so it's pretty accurate. No doubt they're about to update it again. But $31,000 for a single age pension, $47,000 for a couple. Now, one of the questions we had was how much does a single need compared to a couple? Well, you can do the numbers, what Centrelink is saying, and once again, they're not necessarily right, and every single is very different to every couple. But if I punch the numbers on my calculator, you go 31,000 divided by 47,000. Centrelink's saying that a single spends about 66% of a couple. That's been my experience as well. If we punch the same numbers for the ASFA numbers for a comfortable lifestyle, they're saying a single needs about 55,923,000 a year. Let's call that 56,000. And they're saying a couple needs about 78,500. So let's do the maths on that. So they're saying that a single needs about 70%. Now, somewhere in that range, they're about right, but it will vary individually. So a single doesn't need half of what a couple needs because they've got one house, they're not sharing the rates, etc., and other costs, body corporates rates. Other things they won't be half. So 2/3, I think, is a reasonable example. So if you think you need 100,000 as a couple, then maybe one of you post the other one going might be 2/3 of that, 66,000. So what do I think about these numbers? Like I said, a comfortable lifestyle, 78,000 a year. Yeah, that could be done. That's comfortable. It's not remotely luxurious. They actually break this down here. So I'll talk about what's in a comfortable lifestyle, whether it's for a single. And for those of you that can see this, you'll be able to see and read this. But for everyone else, I will describe it to you. So for a comfortable lifestyle, couple 78,000, that should be able to give you top-level private health insurance with doctor's visits, cover your pharmacy needs. It should be able to give you fast, reliable NBN, computer and an iPhone with good data allowance and streaming. It should be able to own a reasonable car with the car insurance and maintenance upkeep. Should be able to fund regular leisure activities, including club memberships, cinema visits, exhibitions, dance, yoga classes. You should be able to fund home repairs, updates, maintenance to the kitchen and bathroom and appliances over 20 years, regular haircuts. It's funny the things they put on here. Confidence to use air conditioning, very important. I remember my grandmother, God bless her, long gone, would run around our house, turning off lights, turning off everything because she was a child of the Depression and got taught to turn everything off. You didn't want to waste power. Occasional restaurant meals, and we're starting now to get into the bits where people can spend more money. So it covers occasional restaurant meals, and we know things like restaurant meals can range from $80 for two people to 800, and that's at the extreme. But that's the possibilities. I regularly see restaurant bills for my wife and I if we're traveling, and this is in Europe or Sydney or Melbourne at the top end. We don't do all this time, all the time, but it's easy to spend $400 at a restaurant. Part of it depends clearly on the restaurant. Part of it depends on the wine list. But what we're looking at here is comfortable. So what's okay? So they're saying occasional restaurant meals, home delivery, the occasional takeaway coffee. You can replace worn out clothing and footwear, modest wardrobe updates. So clearly, some of you will live more luxurious than that. And certainly people I know, including very closely, I won't name names, would be far from modest wardrobe updates. It's one of their hobbies and they'll spend well there, and happy days to them if they can afford to do it. But this is where it starts to get interesting. So the last bit on this list here is annual domestic trip to visit family, one overseas trip every 7 years. I go, wow. I mean, at the moment, I've chosen not to retire. I'm of an age where I could retire. I've got enough money that I could retire. I chose not to retire, but we are traveling. Last year, I've had 4 overseas trips, travel for about 20 weeks of the year. My travel budget is way more than this total budget. And I do choose to fly business class because I can. That's not a need. That's a want, and it's a chicken and egg thing. If you can afford it, you're going to do it. If you can't afford it, you're not going to do it. But at one trip every 7 years, for lots of our clients, and my experience in dealing with clients that have earned well and spent well, is they want a trip every year. So immediately that's going to push that 70,000 up to more like 90,000 or 100,000. If you're like more regular restaurants, if you like updating the wardrobe more often, plus the travel, you can easily get to 120,000, 150,000 just off those alone. But you can get by on that modest level. So then let's have a look at the modest lifestyle, 52,000 a year, 1,000 a week. So that's basic health insurance, reasonably reliable, IT, so that the access, owning a cheaper, older car, infrequent leisure activities, occasional trip to the cinema, limited budget for home repairs, budget haircuts, need to keep a close watch on all utility costs and make sacrifices. That's turning the air conditioning off. It's turning all the lights off like my grandmother. And it's limited meals out at inexpensive restaurants, infrequent home delivery or takeaway. Now, I see people, we live in a great part of the world here on the Sunshine Coast, and I'll see people doing picnics on the beach. And they pull out their esky, they might have some sausages to barbecue. They enjoy the great outdoors and the views at a fraction of the cost of being in a restaurant at the same. So at that level, you've got to, you've got to be scrimping, you've got to be focusing. It's not to say you can't be happier, but you've got to have to work harder. Now, note the couple's age pension, 47,000, is below that modest lifestyle. So you've got to work even harder. Now, I know people on full age pension and they get adaptable. They might pick up some part-time work. They might house sit for people, dog walk, pick up a bit of pocket money here and there, which pays for the odd restaurant and things like that. Most of the stuff we talk about with clients is building to, at a minimum, that comfortable lifestyle. So our clients that we sit down day to day with would be sort of a minimum for a couple, 80,000 a year and 60,000 for a couple. So it's above that comfortable lifestyle we've just described. And the average is probably 150,000 and the upper end is anywhere from 400,000 to 600,000. We sat down with a couple last week and one adult child, not planning on leaving lots of money, got enough assets, and they've been trying to live really well. So they've done lots of overseas travel. They fly business class, worked out for the last 5 years, they're spending about 450,000 a year. Now, they're also very active givers to charity. So that's included. They probably give away 50 grand a year. as part of what they do. And now some people, we're never judgmental on this. So some people are judgmental. They say, oh, you don't need to spend that much. And absolutely correct. But if they've worked hard and they choose to, they both do lots of volunteering, lots of charitable work. They look after themselves and they like to do stuff like going skiing, in foreign countries, traveling business class, so they can afford to do it. So we just show them that they can afford to do it, help them manage their money well so they can do it what I call guilt-free. Now, that's at the top end, and I'm sure there's people out there that spend more than $500,000. Once again, chicken and egg. If you're a billionaire and you're earning $100 million a year, guess what? You'll find a way to spend more than $500,000. But if you've got $1 million, you'll find a way to live off it. Some of you have seen, and if you go to our website, you'll see our How Much workshop and calculator, where we've actually got a recorded workshop and a calculator and a workbook that allow you to work this out exactly for those of you that want to feel more comfortable than just going by the rules of thumbs. And that will take you through things like the inheritances and all the other bits and pieces, things like whether you want to help kids, and all that sort of stuff, because they're all the factors. So you can see an extract from this How Much workshop here on how long money will last. And we use just a really simple multiple thing. I've been using this. We've got all sorts of software that shows people this more visually, but let's talk about someone with $1 million that wants $100,000 a year. And if they want 100, well, let's say they've got $1 million now and they're trying to work out whether that's enough to retire. And they go, well, I'm 60 years old. I think I'm going to inherit another $1 million by the time I'm 80. My parents got a house with $1 million plus some super. Probably about $2 million in total. There's two of us, so pretty comfortable. It's going to be close to $1 million. So you go, all right, so how much do I need to produce 100,000 a year and for the next 20 years? And you can see on the screen, and I'll talk to it for those that are listening. It depends on two things, the time frame and the growth you're going to get from your super portfolio and other investments. So for a balanced, and this is assuming good quality returns. Now, if you're not investing well, the first step is to make sure you're investing well. So to make sure you know the difference. And we've got information on that. If ever you need any help from an advisor, you can click on our Find Me an Advisor, and the advisor can do all this stuff for you. But for those that are on the journey of learning themselves and happening to themselves, massive respect. That's why we do all this stuff. So let's say someone's got their investment act together and they're in a balanced option that they've got confidence that will deliver inflation plus 4.5%. So that should be returning in the sort of 6.5% to 8% range consistently, and likely to do that for the rest of their lives. So we go across that column and we see for 20 years you'd need 13 times how much you need. So if they wanted $100,000 a year, they need 1.3 million. They can say, I've got $1 million now, so I either work another few years till I've got the 1.3, or I have to take less. So if I did it the other way, if I take the $1 million and divide it by 13, I get about just under 80,000. So I've got to live off that comfortable amount of about 78,000. Let me do the maths exactly. So if I've got $1 million right now, and I say, all right, I want it to last 20 years, and I divide that by 13, big qualifications, make sure you actually got the right investments, then you'd have to live off 75,000 a year. So then you got that decision to make. Is my 3 years worth of extra work worth it to have 25,000 a year more to spend, or would I rather have the time? So there's the time versus money trade-off. I'm not going to tell you what's right there. You've got to decide how important it is to you and whether you're happy to trade that off. Eat out a bit less, travel overseas a bit less, drive to see relatives, stay with friends. You can still have the holidays. You'll just do it slightly differently. To flip to the other amount, the other extremes that we said, if I've got $2 million, can I afford to retire? Well, if I've got, and I'll use a different example here, but if you've got $2 million in assets and you've got no big plans around property, or you're not got an insurance, so you're 60 years old, you want your money to last for 30 years, you'd go to the 30-year column, and assuming the same balance profile here, we'd go $2 million divided by 16, and that would give you a budget of $125,000 a year. Now, that's well above that comfortable budget as specified there, so that starts to get into what I call the good life budget. So all of a sudden you've got an extra 50 grand to divvy up how you want it. And that's for things like the wardrobe updates, the nice food and wine, the better holidays, the more frequent holidays, etc. That still might not be flying at the front of the plane, but you might be absolutely happy with that, and that's absolutely fine. So you can see the process here. You can absolutely make do on any number. That's not going to cut it for lots of people. So then you've got this time constraints. How do you work this out? Keep watching all this stuff. You'll keep learning. This is the start of a series. I've probably got another 5 or 6 that relate to sort of how much coming up from this. But if you want to do it personally, tune into our How Much workshop. Go to our website. You can buy that. It's relatively modest. It's less than one of those meals I was talking about. And you can work it out. Video, workbook, etc. If it's all too much, if it's not your thing, we can absolutely help you find an accredited advisor that does things the way that we're comfortable with, and they can plan for you and also make sure you're investing well as well. So as we wrap up, I'm going to put it all in context. We have a core belief based on 30 years of helping people with their retirement planning that the best decisions are made as part of a real plan. Instead of winging it, crossing the fingers, hoping that you're not going to run out of money, being scared about running out of money, and all those things, do a plan. It doesn't have to be a complex plan, just the type of stuff we've talked about today. You will need to make sure you're confident in your investments, but it's actually all about you and the specifics of your life and the life you want to live. If you've been living off 200,000 a year, dropping to 100 will seem harsh. If you've been living off 50,000 a year and you work out you could spend 100,000, that will seem like the utmost of luxury. So it's all personal, it's all perspective. I wish you all the best in working that out for yourself, and feel free to jump on any of the tools and resources, including continuing to watch this podcast to help you work that out. Wish you all the best. If you like this sort of stuff, please continue to like us, share this information, and we look forward to seeing you in our next session. Rob McGregor, signing out.